So now we are receiving Dharma teachings, explaining the Buddha Dharma and receiving teachings of the Buddha Dharma. And so now, since I'm the one explaining the Dharma teachings, teaching them, even if I'm not able to always engage in practice on an ongoing basis, when I'm teaching the Dharma, I must change my motivation and really think that I want to benefit everyone who is listening to these teachings. So I try to really cultivate such a motivation. And then on your part, the one who is listening to the teachings, you should not regard the Dharma teaching as some kind of entertaining spectacle or just some normal class or so, but actually think that I'm listening to the teachings for the benefit of all mother sentient beings, limitless as space. And so this is the motivation we have to try to cultivate when we listen and explain the teachings. And so since we all are practitioners of the Mahayana, therefore, if we just have this short time for an hour, for example, as a Mahayana practitioner, if we engage in this hour with this motivation, then whether we teach the Dharma or listen to the Dharma, there will be a great result from that. Because through these words of the Dharma and listening to the Dharma, then great merit is actually accomplished. And now, then everything that you think of will be accomplished in this life even. For example, you will have a longer lifespan and fewer illnesses, and your activities be successful, and in future lifetimes you attain this birth in the higher realms, and then a state of omniscience. So as a practitioner here, we have an opportunity for that, and therefore it is important that we use this time taking up this opportunity by cultivating such an excellent motivation.
Teni da lalin sobdo mande tamarang ke nambak chu jang de tomar lola zunyak chu teri tadaram boche ke kachu den kachu hyotna chi de yang se ka se hyuba ina yang kwa sarva ta nandu lamne tatala ko hoyre choran sa jipare jipa injury tuni chidro thamje ke trawa train book up sayang tarong lalin sodu ma de ten saru roya tar thangcher roya marang kun ne tana jikiu ten tu marang roya na yang ti ton chim je je so hyo ke su na yu padang tuni phala te hye ya tang ro lan chi ala su ba de ke ko ka yu ba de su nam chimbo yin sakyo teni charang so la tana sunan chimbo yu marang kitin ta ban jisira hyu.
The 37 Bodhisattva practices is actually a text that was actually the first text that I had memorized when first starting to study the Buddha Dharma. And now Rinpoche is giving teachings on this text. And actually, the more teachings I hear on this text, the deeper and more profound my understanding becomes. And the inner meaning of this text is really, really unsurpassed. And probably you have a similar experience. And so also now have answered, have had the opportunity to answer some questions and also share some words on the 37 practices. That whenever we go into that, then the understanding becomes increasingly deep and profound. And I find that having an opportunity to do that is a great merit. And so I also can see that you possess great merit, and I rejoice in that.
Nani da tereng marang so ke something level and sharp level kone test in show hitaya tana chadu tla.
So today I will speak a bit about those two chapters on meditative concentration, the paramitas of meditative concentration and wisdom.
Tani da something level and hirak level da so raw in a book lamni ya mambo sum ya tana yusare. Chetang che sumbang sumjun raw la ripa numbo wambo rak tamche ripulang ya tamche chigolang triggeris. Wambo rain tamche tene danga tamenga kalamni ya tamche chigolang triggeris. Tene wambo da de yimba tamche da depa kalam triggeri da sumtu yore ina ya da wambo rak ina depa mugo kinra watang wambo tama ina yang ripa mugo katana mari marang so tsama go yubare depa mina tene sanjik chude nyamsani ya kron mi de bare ripa chambu thone ro ya yo mari yang ripa ka sama matang ba ina depa chibu ke ya ma so la dat ku yo mari ngao te te pa tang re pa song de dra thong ni ta nyam ni ko wa lu ti lam ta ma su de pa ka ni ka ra thong la su ba su nyam su dan ro ti ko la tin je ti ni
So now speaking of this, the parameters of meditative concentration and wisdom is like a path of knowledge where we are introduced to this knowledge, and there's much to be said about that. In general, it is said that the teachings are given depending on the mental capacity, and that the path
讲到这个般若以及禅定般若蜜的，这只是修行得到，也没有什么太多可以讲的。那所有这个法教都是根据学生的根器来讲的。
Medium mental faculties, there is the path of the oral instructions and the pith instructions.
那对于中根器的人的口诀传授，那对于钝根器的人呢，就是要升起信心跟的虔诚心。
If someone is of highest mental faculty, one can do away with faith and devotion, and likewise, one can also not say that if one is of a lower capacity,
讲错了，这个那个是立根器的。这并不是说所有那个立根器的人光靠那个虔诚心跟信心就可以了，也不是说中根器的人只靠知识就可以，是所有根器的都需要三者相辅相成的。我们都需要这个知识以及信心的总和才可以。然后以此呢依赖内观，那这是前一阶段所没有的。자들의 쇼바이 이유가 뭐가 힘들 되네 something 히라니가 같이 보래 되네 공부로게 something 미브라야네 히라미 브라야네 something 미 되네 something 강라 데니 시베 시바에 잠소 나지다워 차버지에서 나타나서 보래 데인데 something 히라미가 되나 tene khason ko japso ta de yang tene na gi na ge ta chwa na yin lam sam ko kam chuba tena ji cha de yu ban de something de hiran ni de kar chim ben bi jum si there is na ya gi na na chwa yu na ko lam sam kam de ra yak ji wa ji ya ko ba ya ge ji tene ma sa kong kong yu tene chwa yu na的你们可能上干了，something的hiram有呢，跟考虑讲说情况这样，定然也能上干了的人送。
So meditation and wisdom are like
禅定跟般若，就好像一只鸟的左右翼。你如果要飞翔到佛果，需要两个翅膀都需要的，所以两者都是很重要的。那龙树菩萨在过去曾经讲说，如果没有禅定，不可能有般若；没有般若，不可能会有禅定。这二者缺一不可。
Then the ocean of samsara will be dried out, just like
如果说有两者的话，那么轮回之海也会被蒸干的，就好像这个牛蹄印里面的水在太阳底下会被蒸发完全一样。如果有般若跟这个禅定的话，那即使如
广大如大海的轮回三界，轮回大海也可以干枯的，蒸干的。
So then, first begin with meditation. So that
首先，我们从禅修开始。第29计，以之聚集之圣观，能尽摧灭诸烦恼，远离无色界四处，修禅定是佛子行。
Often there's these terms of meditative concentration, or no samadhi concentration, or shamatha calm abiding, and often these terms are used interchangeably, are taught as having the same meaning, but also they are explained as having like there's also stages to them. And so we begin first with the stage of calm abiding.
不管是禅定、三摩地，或者修止或修定啊，有的时候我们用这个3个名词是互换的，但是各自也有它的阶段性。一般而言呢，我们是从修止或修定开始的。
So shamatha, calm abiding, is first of all the mind must be able to abide, sustain a tranquil and calm state, thought-free state. And in order to dwell within such a tranquil state, to achieve such a state of abiding, there are 9 different methods. And it's important to follow them step by step. If one doesn't do that, then shamatha, calm abiding, will not be accomplished. If shamatha is not accomplished, meditative concentration or meditative absorption will not arise. And if that doesn't arise, then the insight, the special insight of vipassana, that actually is then the antidote to the afflictive emotions, will also not arise. And if vipassana does not arise, one cannot attain enlightenment.
我们要修止呢，我们的心必须安止在平静无念的状态之下。要达到这个境界呢，有9种方法，必须一步一步按部就班的来，否则难以达到止的境界。那没有止的话，也不可能有禅定；没有禅定，不可能有内观，达到内观；没有观的话，观我们知道观是烦恼的对治法，没有达到观的境界是不可能得到证悟的。
tene sem number in women nyumong cheba chana ne sondo tene da sem de kase yen de wana tene nyumong bala ya de sona chewa na gi cha de ko chewa gang de ne do chewa ni da tene je to chan zo de tene so che ya ma do mi de wa do che lo chewa chana ne chewa ja cha ko ya ma to do go ya ma se do go
Music capsule.
pena nga tudang ho senji no je tinga ka chawa te kalne do na tinge so de ona te yang ko chen ro
Tudang machine ora.
na tudang chen o tin na yin je go ngarang so sen di yin chan de zong de tin ngarang so la cha zo ko nyum mo ba ke ta ngarang so chong cho cho do cha de yo ba re de de ta ngarang de le ji ti ko jang bo ro nyum mo ba de cha na yin nyum mo che wa cha na ne.
So currently our mind is like the mind of a child. So a child doesn't know what to be careful about fire or water. It doesn't know what it should and what it shouldn't do. And so a parent needs to teach all of that step by step to the child, how to eat food, how to dress, and so forth. And so in a similar way, we need to gradually train the mind to abide still, in a tranquil state. And so we speak about the 3 realms of samsara, the desire realm, form realm, and formless realm. And in the desire realm, where we're at, the mind of beings is extremely coarse, it's very coarse. And that means that when we see an object, then immediately we are attracted to it, we are taken over by the object. Or when you hear a sound, the sound immediately takes you over, right away you go there. It's not that we are ready to be taken over, we will always be taken over. And so the same applies to any of the other sense objects like touch and smell and so forth. It's the same. So we have a very strong grasping at the true existence of things that actually do not exist, and also we deny the existence of existing things and so on. In the Bodhicharyavatara, it says the mind of a distracted person, a distracted mind, to a distracted mind, the afflictive emotions are bite you or kind of take you like this, like an animal with fangs, you know. It just takes you and grabs you and bites you. So just like and then that means that the death of your awareness. Just like when you like bite into, like, I don't know, if you take a bite into a mosquito, it dies, for example. So anyways, what it means is that the afflictive emotions, we're just ready to be distracted all the time. We're always distracted, and that's why the afflictive emotions just completely overtake us. So the afflictive emotions are like these fangs that overtake us.
以目前的情况来讲，一般的凡夫的心就好像小孩子一样，不知道什么应该做，什么不应该做，怎么样吃，怎么样穿，都必须要由父母来一直教导，慢慢训练，才能够把心安住在一个安定的一个状态当中。那么慢慢的从欲界、色界、无色界这样子，众生的心是相当的粗的，那么而且很容易为外界的一些境界所转。
So first we need to stop this awareness from being projected outward all the time, going outward. But we don't do that in a forceful way. So what we first do is, the first of those nine steps of calm abiding, of placing the mind, of settling the mind, is we place an object, a small object, before us, in front of us, and then we we fixate our mind onto that object. That is the first step of those 9 steps of mental abiding, and it's called the placing inward or inner placement. And so that is just like a bee settles on a flower, so it comes to rest on a flower. And so just like that, the mind settles on this object, it comes to rest on this object. So that's the inner placement.
那么，当我们眼睛看到东西的时候，心就跑到那里；耳朵听到东西的时候，心也跑到那里。触摸到什么东西的话，心也在那里。总之，就是我们对外界的一些幻象呢，有很强的执着，认为他们就是实在的。在路菩萨行论里有讲到，一个分心的人，那个烦恼就是好像野兽一般的会咬着你。那么这边所谓的烦恼，就是让我们分心占据我们内心的。
So then the second step is to the continuous placement, and so is that not enough to just place your mind on the object and then again become distracted, but once the mind rests with the object, it has to stay there. So you have to sustain that continuum by keep it going. So you continue it on. So that is the second step, the continuous placement. And then the third step is like the kind of returning placement, where when the mind does become distracted and goes outward, then you stop the outward distraction and bring the mind back to its object.
第一个我们要做的就是不要去往外驰窜，不要往外看但这样做并不是说猛烈的马上停止，而是用一个小小的东西所缘物放在我们面前，观着它，把心安住在那上面，那往内收，那这有点像蜜蜂把停在花朵之上，就是把心安在一个所缘物一个东西上面。第二个阶段除了把心安在这个所缘物上，心也不要纷乱，也不要分散，继续安住在所缘物上，不分心。第三个阶段就是当我们心分心的时候，我们要立刻停止，然后回到所缘物之上。
말이 차오래 다 차오라야 돼 토르도 요요다 하지 시보미도 요 사차 락서와
Then number 4 is the close placement, and so that is after you have repeated step 3 over and over again of bringing your mind again and again back to the object. So sometimes what happens then is that we don't even notice that the consciousness is distracted outward. And that's actually one fault of calm abiding that arises. There's basically 2 faults that can arise in calm abiding, and that is mental sinking, and one is mental agitation. Mental sinking is when you lose your mental clarity, and it's very important to recognize that. And to this loss of clarity, there are actually 2 kinds, the subtle and the coarse. The coarse loss of clarity is when you're first staying with your object, and then it becomes less clear. So you're still sort of there, you're with the object, but the mind has sunk into a state of unclarity. You're just barely there with awareness. So the mind sank into unclarity. And then the subtle mental sinking or loss of clarity is when you then completely lose all of your clarity. So then the mind becomes the clarity becomes subtle, and that means you might fall asleep and so on.
古巴来的见的那个说，这里马上就是想到。
那么第4个呢，就是要反复我们第3步之后，我们要再回到这个所缘物之上，那么安住在安止在这个东西之上。有的时候我们并不知道我们的心已经跑掉了。在这个时候呢，有2种常见的过患，一个是昏沉，一个是掉举。所谓的昏沉就是内心失去了清明，那这一点呢是比较容易指认出来的。昏沉又分成粗细2面，粗就是安在所缘物，但是越来越不清楚。
The other fault of calm abiding, and so that is when, for example, very intense thoughts and afflictive emotions arise. They negatively affect your meditation because you lose your concentration, you lose your object of focus. Or you hear a sound or anything else, any other condition that causes you to lose your focus on the object, that causes you to think. So both of these faults of a lack of clarity and mental agitation, those two are the greatest faults of shamatha. And whenever they occur, it is important to recognize them with mindfulness. So to apply these two measures, that is mindfulness and introspection.
那比较细的昏沉就是完全失去了清明，可能就睡着了，昏睡了。那掉举呢，就是针对一个比较强的这个烦恼升起了，就失去了注意力了，或者是跑在外在的现象，比如说阴身之上了。那么昏沉跟掉举是在修止的过程当中比较大的过患，所以我们要马上提起正念，并且要内省自己的状况。
Then the 5th step is subduing or pacifying placement. And so that is when sometimes you do stay with your object of focus, and then while you stay there, suddenly sometimes a feeling of sadness also arises. Like you just have this natural feeling of just feeling unwell or just feeling uneasy inside. And at that time when that happens, again, think a little bit about the qualities of samadhi, of concentration, the qualities of that. So we don't want to think too much because then that would be considered distraction according to shamatha. But think enough so that you can lift yourself up to a state of joy and again come back to the object of focus. So that is the pacifying placement.
Prabhupada shivarasibala ta yuwane tsashiyago yora. Tene mayim tuane sanji kunji lam yuwe lam duji parche yu song ta minga mambo na yangse song do de. Tene shivarasibala ta susu jula yuwa tosam kibayna ya hako toni yuwa da pangni.
那第5个步骤呢，就是内心呢觉得在所缘物上突然感到忧伤，内心不安。这个时候我们应该要思维再提起。
Regarding pacifying distraction, so it is said, non-distraction is the path of all the Buddhas. The path of distraction is the path of the maras and obstacles. So this is how it is explained in many of the Pith instructions again and again. And so when you practice calm abiding and a slight distraction occurs, then you try to bring whatever whatever you're distracted by, first of all, you recognize that and you bring the mind back, you pacify the distraction. So that's the pacifying placement.
那么所以这个时候呢，我们要在思维，再提起禅修的喜悦。可是这个时候我们也不要去思索太多，否则我们就失去了定跟止了。那第六个呢，就是止息，止息，我们要知道不分心是诸佛之道，所以我们在修止的时候，我们的心变得比较分散了。在这个时候，我们马上要了知，把分散的注意力集中回来。
And then number 7 is the utter pacification. So it's like the intensified version of number 6. So 7 is utterly pacified, and so it refers to the more subtle afflictions, especially like jealousy and pride. In comparison to an affliction like hatred, they are more subtle. But in general, in terms of their function, they are not necessarily more subtle, but the reason why they are called more subtle is because we don't normally recognize them. Many of us all the time have them, but we rarely recognize an emotion of jealousy, for example. For example, when you get really angry, you immediately recognize that you're angry. But it's very difficult to recognize jealousy. So in the context of the 6th step, the pacification, so here the mind is rather pacified and you have gained some experience of calm abiding, and you might develop some pride in that, thinking that now I have developed this state of calm abiding. And often actually people even mistakenly view their state of calm abiding, think that this actually is Mahamudra, and actually it isn't. So for that we need the 7th step, the utter pacification.
那么第7个步骤就是完全的止息，因为这个是要对治更微细的烦恼，就好像嫉妒心一样。一些比较粗的烦恼，比如说像嗔心，我们是很容易注意到的，但是有的时候我们对于比较微细的烦恼，像嫉妒心升起的时候，却不去了知，没有办法认知它们。那么我们要把这个注意力再找回来。因为到了第6个阶段，如果克服了之后，有的已经有些止的现象，那有的时候内心就觉得有点骄慢，好像以为自己已经证到大手印的境界了，其实还没到那里。
Number 8 is to place the mind in single pointedness, and that also implies that an effort is still needed in single-pointedness. Because otherwise, what happens at this point is that you have achieved a certain level of stability. You abide in a tranquil way for an extensive period of time, and this causes your body and your mind both to become quite pliant. So there's this pliancy of body and mind that is experienced as a very blissful experience. And it is possible that one then becomes attached to this blissful experience. So there is a danger that one begins to cling to this experience of shamatha. There's one story of Pamo Drupal when he saw he relied on a lama, and so this lama gave him meditation instructions on calm abiding, and so he practiced calm abiding, and he developed this physical and mental pliancy and achieved quite a blissful state of calm abiding. And he asked his lama about that. So he shared his experience in meditation, and then he asked his lama, what does this mean? And the lama replied, oh, it means that you have obtained the path of seeing. So then later, Pamudrupa met with Gampopa, and he told Gampopa about that encounterance, and he said that this lama told me that I have attained the path of seeing. And so Gampopa listened while he was eating his bowl of tsampa, and then he broke off some part of his tsampa, and he said, you know what's better than your path of seeing is this piece of tsampa. So that is so basically that was an instruction for him to continue making an effort in single-pointedness, even though some pliancy and some stability of shamatha has arisen. So what this step means is that when this stability arises and you feel physically and mentally pliant, then there is a danger that you will relax your effort in meditation. And so therefore the 8th point is to continue your effort in single-pointedness.
那么第8个阶段就是第8个步骤，就是一心的禅修。那么在这个时候已经有稍微的定静了，身心都处在一个比较愉悦的状态，可是也可能让我们自己呢单着在这种止的这种乐。在过去呢，帕摩直巴在修止的时候以为他自己入定了，所以就问他的一个上师，他上师说，哦，你已经证到了，见到位了。后来帕摩祖巴去看那个拜访冈波巴大师的时候，冈波巴听了之后，他正在吃糌粑，他就扒了一小块说，哦，这就是你的成就。那这样讲的意思就是要他继续在努力，不要再认为说自己在那个程度那个境界是很了不起的。
제와 지독장 거거리라 송중요르다 상대야 저 신의 야부 러송바지게 상하도지도 බලන 휴가이나 로조니 난 상제들에서 샤준 송마요 이는 다때 간사지 차블 송마라 간사 수술을 뜨바이나양 간사 수소 그래서 뭐로 시라브리 존주리 도서를 때네요 또 통통하는 참
And then there's the 9th step of shamatha, and that is the even placement. So you're abiding evenly, and so at this point, the mind is completely even. So that is very natural. There is no actually at this point. It is effortless. And effortless means that you can place your mind on an object, and by merely placing it on the object, it stays there. for any given period of time. So in the three realms of samsara, this is kind of the pinnacle of the desire realm mind. And then the next step that goes beyond that is meditative concentration or absorption. And from the perspective of meditative concentration, this ninth step of shamatha, calm abiding, still is considered a coarse level. It is not yet even a subtle level of meditative absorption. So from that perspective, it is not a true calm abiding yet, but it is the foundation, the necessary foundation to achieve meditative concentration or absorption. For that, shamatha is really very important. And so now these 9 steps on how to achieve that is now in a general sense, and of course every person is different and accomplishes that in a different time span too. For example, the Vajrayana is called the swift path, whereby one may attain enlightenment in a single lifetime, in a single body. It is a skillful path that may lead to enlightenment in one lifetime. But then it also depends on the individual. For example, it is said that if a practitioner who does not have the foundation of shamatha as a basis, if such a person enters the Vajrayana path, it is said that they will attain enlightenment after 16 lifetimes. And it is also said that if a person who enters the Vajrayana with a foundation of having already accomplished shamatha, they can attain enlightenment within 12 years. But again, this is generally speaking, and everyone is different, and it mainly really depends on the level of one's own wisdom and also one's diligence in the practice. So that really determines how quick these practices will be accomplished.
那么第9个阶段就是等持，就是什么时候都是很平稳的，这等于算是欲界最高境界了。但是这种定还是算是比较粗的定，还是没有真正的到后面的定，但是已经是很好的，这个已经尝到禅定的初步的。当然每个人到达这个境界的阶段的时间是不一定的。那么虽然在我们讲说金刚乘是可以一生一生的证，但也依个人而定。如果没有修止而修金刚乘的话，那么16世才能成就。可是如果已经修到定了，然后再修金刚乘的话，则可能在12年里面得到成就。总之每个人的状况跟速度不同，依据每个人的智慧跟精进修持的程度不同而定。所以呢，这个禅定的9个次第或9住心，第一个就是内住，第2个是续住，第3个是安住，第4个是静住，第5个是调顺，第6个是极静，第7是最极静，第8是专注一趣，第9是等持。
There's 4 levels. First is focus, second is like a deliberate placement, third is a non-deliberate placement, and then third is a spontaneous accomplishment. So first, the focus is where you first begin to focus the mind inward. You place the mind on its object and you focus it there single-pointedly. Then second, the deliberate placement is where at this point you're not yet able to just place the mind on the object, it just stays there. So it needs some deliberation. You need to make it stay there again and again. And then third is non-deliberated placement. And so here it becomes basically natural. You just stay continuously with the object without having to intentionally or deliberately place it on the object. It just stays there because the quality of the ability of abiding is stronger. And then the fourth one is the spontaneous abiding or accomplishment. And so that is the accomplishment of shamatha, where the mind then really stays still with stability. So these are the 4 ways of engaging the mind.
那我们那个修心的4个方法4个阶段，第一个是专注，就是心往内一心专注；第二个是注意的安住，让心反复安住在那里；第三个就是不作意的安住，就是自然持续在那个状态之中，那个物件之上。那这个时候安住的心已经变得很强了。第4个是自然的成就。就是已经到这个修道的止或者是定的心是非常定的，非常很容易就止的。
시빈 고라마 세와데 남도 지용바에는 남도데 방고야 그제 고라나기 차도 여러와 어때인데 때니 로알로츠 되니 되가라 쭝드 단데니 다 쭝드 라야데 같이 같이 보이 드라인 라니 소드는 뭐지 송송 어때인데 쭝드데 되니 미드마롱바 페나 파르데 심바 롱나니 쭝드데 사마라로 같이 괜찮아요 여러와 어때인데 쭝드다 드니 드라 차바는 드니 갈레 드니 소소게 tarate mi pa te tam mi sa te sa ke tarate mi pa yala te sa ke yor te ni pa te ni ja to ma ni ba na yi chan de ta te la dik to sin ta top drop te am hi ne tu zi ki na cha de yor dik to de tru a timba sumba hi gi ki ba ma ba zung
And then there is a few more tools for the practice of shamatha. There is 6 powers. So first, there's the power of the power of hearing. So first of all, you need to hear from your teacher by asking him questions. For example, how do I need to practice shamatha? What is the physical posture that I need to assume, like the 7-point posture and so on, and what do I have to do with my mind and so on. Secondly is the power of reflection. So then when you practice, you remember what you have heard. Oh, he said I should do this or do that. So you know what you should do. You reflect on that. Then the third power is the power of mindfulness, and the fourth power is the power of introspection, and these are to be considered separate because they perform a slightly different function. Mindfulness is like the kind of the watchman and the guard. Actually, it's the guard, and then introspection is like the watchman who looks further. And these two are actually very important for meditation. So the guard of mindfulness knows when the afflictive emotion is there. And introspection, the watchman of introspection, knows before it arises. So it sees when an afflictive emotion could arise. So that's why we consider them to be separate. And number 5 is diligence. And Rinpoche mentioned that this morning in the teachings on the 37 practices. The paramita of diligence is really indispensable for our practice. And all the other paramitas must be supported by the paramita of diligence. And so then finally the 6th is the power of like merging, mixing. And so what happens is that when you continue to focus your attention on your focal object, then finally the mind becomes merged with it, just like mixing a tea with milk.
다시 드라게 히네게 인라도 차 참고도 되네 히네 드바이나
那么除了这个之外呢，修止还有的工具还有六个力量。第一个是听闻，就是从老师那边听闻法教；第二个是反思，去反省老师所讲的法教；第三个是要有正念，这个就好像一个守卫一样，去关照这个烦恼的升起，知道烦恼就在那里。第四个是内省，内省就好像一个远眺望的这个人一样，看到烦恼的升起，所以这两个也是有些微的差距的，正念跟内省。第五个是精进，就是修行所不能或缺的精进，就像今天早上的波切所讲。第六个是融合，就继续安置在所缘物，心与之合一，就好像奶茶和唯一。
It's important that all of these branches are complete. It is that when all these branches are complete, then shamatha is accomplished easily. But if they are not complete, in this text called the Lamp to the Path of Enlightenment, on the Path of Enlightenment, it says, if all of these branches of shamatha are, if any of those branches is incomplete, so if they are not complete, then even if you practice, meditate with a great effort, it will be difficult to accomplish shamatha.
那我们在修止的时候，很重要的这一点是，这些几个步骤都要按部就班次序的完成。那么这样子能够修止就比较容易的。那否则的话，要达到修止就不容易的。根据 The Land to the Path of Enlightenment 到解脱到达解脱之道的，通往解脱之道的地方的这本书上面写的就是这样子。
담보 말은 생도 내자데 같이 버려. 나서 코알 이행니 코알 코드 요래 마도게 나서 생도 내체는 코알 이행되와 따라 히카스 말어와. 이나데 코알 니 파타야라 게이지 리베스나 게이리데 니 차치보 소세소마이나 이나 다른 나토로 좀 가르치지도 생도 이행체 좀도 마도 내체 좀도 되는데 내 파도 조지거. 내 파도 조지 바이나 생고 용디 sarwa teni jeba zopa tamche repti compartong chogo yore tambo choran sen neba de mis sumaina teni sarwa dan jeba zopa tso lesa ko marwa de ta hinem de me parte dan de ko yores.
So when a good level of stability in shamatha is achieved, it's actually quite similar to something that is mentioned in the Dzogchen teachings. In Dzogchen it speaks about four kind of ways of placement, and one is placing the view like resting, or four kind of resting. So resting in the view like a mountain, or resting in meditation like an ocean. So these are just two of those four, so that what may lead one to think that Dzogchen is the same as shamatha practice, and while they have many similarities, it often happens that people do make the mistake of thinking that they're exactly the same equivalent. So first of all, the ability to abide calmly is important. But then we cannot say that this is all there is to it. But this is our main focus in the beginning, because the reason why we wander in samsara is because we are distracted. We don't wander in samsara because we are settled and placed, but because we are constantly distracted. We don't abide. And so in general, of course, to focus only on the aspect of stability is also said to be a hindrance to liberation, if it's only that. But to us in the beginning, that is also our biggest fault. It is that of distraction. We have the fault of distraction, not the fault of abiding. And so that is why we need to consider the quality of abiding as most important in the beginning. And so then from that quality of abiding, the other qualities of clarity and increasing and completion will arise. But if you don't have the aspect of this abiding ability in the beginning, then all these other qualities of clarity and so on will also not arise. So we need to make an effort in the practice of calm abiding.
Tene dati kauden da maso kam kawan da sena tene do kam zumi kam zo something to soche ga zo kam na tsa yo rete ngarang so la something ro ya yo re
那么当我们讲到这个安止或者是安定的时候，这个跟大圆满所讲的4种安住是很像的。4种安住里面有讲到如山如海等等的。那所以有些人认为大圆满跟修止是一样，但是事实上彼此上有一些差距的。当然安止这个力量是很重要的。那我们众生之所以堕入轮回难，是因为我们在这个过程当中分心了，经常的分心。那如果说我们只完全注意安止也是不对，这也是两边的这种过犯，分心或者是安住。
Through the practice of meditative concentration, we come to the form realm, and so. But still, it is something that we can accomplish, the practice of meditative concentration. And so, first it says here, this meditative concentration that transcends the 4 formless absorptions. First of all, this term, meditative concentration, itself is a mind that is virtuous. And it is focused on a certain focal object single-pointedly. So it is single-pointedly focused on a focal object. And so that is the meditative concentration.
所以有两边的过犯，一个是容易分心，一个是专注在执着安止。那么我们如果有，但是安止的力量还是很重要。当我们有安止的力量，才能够慢慢升起清明的心。如果我们连安止的力量都没有，不可能有清明的心。我们之所以堕入在我们3界轮回，透过禅定呢，可以慢慢到达从欲界跳升到色界，那这是可能达到的。我们讲到禅定无色界4处，这个是心定在一个所缘物之上的禅定。那这种四禅八定，这个还是有很多的善功德的。
냥캠 나오지 대하 거네 아니 달라 삼비 담보도 냥신기 간자들로 또 봐도 주바니 달라요 거래 아니 삼비 담보라다 똑주니 제단이라 나나나 뭐시 그 요래때 다담 소시기도 또 봐라야 때 가르스는 거 나서 그 다시 요즘 제지 빠진 로서 이내가 타고 버리는 대게 대라야 다른 라빠 그나 봐지 예, 다 통거요. 대 리얼이도 요래. 하자 희와 그 넘바데 차요 말어. 대인데 대라 라파니 돈 통지들라 또 봐라. 대니 야 삼디니 봐본다. 야 따요 근데 없어. 다 삼디니 봐라 가와 요래 대와 요래. 오, 다 뜻소 말하는 토고야. 뜻소 리다 삼네. 다 뜻소라 야 삼모 돈지들라 주바라. 그런 거 또 대니 요래. 대니 삼디 방보들라 ini tingani tambe zona sandi tambola tokjunyira
ni ga yore na tambo de yore bani yore
tokjunyi
kawadan deva tambo nu lakega
marsan ga deva sandi ma ni ga sandi tambo oke ga rapata so sandi ka sandi zai sandi la 희와니 대송 나 되게
민 칼라
주바
So there's 4 levels of meditative concentration, and of course there is much to be said about that, but just a brief outline. The first level of meditative concentration, the first and the second are, the first one is conceptuality. So here, when you just have completed the single-pointedness of shamatha, and you move on to the first level of meditative concentration. And so then, as you move on in your mind, you begin to see the qualities of the first and second and so different levels of meditative concentration. So you're not satisfied with just the single-pointedness of shamatha, but you want to move on with meditative absorption. And so the first level of meditative absorption is still related to a mind of the desire realm, because there still is, from the perspective of the other levels of meditation, a very coarse state of mind. It's still, in comparison, rather coarse. The mind of a desire realm being, whose mind is very coarse. So that's the first meditative absorption. There is still some of conceptuality. Yeah? Then, so from this perspective, the mind is coarse and not completely tranquil. And then on the second level is that of like enjoyment or the enjoyment, and that is on the second level an experience of joy and bliss arise. So that's the second level of meditative concentration.
something you pick up so something down book Tokyo
那么世界的4禅天呢，就是根据禅定的程度有4个层次。这个初禅呢，是跟欲界天还罕见，还有一些欲望还没有达到真正的定。那这个就是我们一般讲的初禅天的离生喜乐地。那2禅天是定生喜乐地，已经能够生出的这个喜了。
Then in a second meditative concentration, that mind sees the conceptual state of the first level as coarse. So one abandons that conceptual coarse state here. And mainly in the second concentration, one rests within a state of joy and bliss. And then in the third concentration, one distinguishes between joy and bliss. So one sees joy as coarse and abandons it, and one strives after bliss. So one dwells in bliss. And then in the fourth concentration, one recognizes bliss as coarse, and one abandons that and then abides within a state of equanimity.
所以2禅天是定生喜乐。当2禅天的人看到初禅，就知道说他们的境界是比较粗的，而舍弃，而能够安住在喜跟乐之中。等到了3禅是离喜 妙乐，他还是认为喜还是比较粗的，而安住在比较微细的乐。等到四层天的舍念清净呢，见到这个乐而安住在见乐还是粗的，所以安住在一个平等的心的状态之中。
And so now we went out there with the explanation, and now we come back again. And so there's only three divisions of meditative concentration. There's three kinds. One is to see, to regard the phenomena that one sees as lacking bliss. And second, to see the qualities of meditation, of absorption. And then third, to the concentration that acts for the benefit of sentient beings. So the first one, to see that phenomena lack any bliss, that is actually the most important one for us.
所以这个禅定的这个修禅的这个3个阶段，第一个是现象界没有任何乐，那第二个阶段是见到禅定的功德，第三个呢为了众生而入定，能够专一求定。就的叫嘛，你学堂我就的啦，这些对呢，我爬东车林爬东，我本来爬东车林啊，这几把呢，我就的你学的我第八楼啥了，你才这个的本来就我那了呢，咱们就我啦，你对吧？咱们两个我了。ate kawane na deke yore ina luti ba nyora yoba zo de tambo luti kala timba de pa ya go yoro ta ma chung go de jiwo ni zo na deke yore kawa zo na deke yora tene ma ro re kichore ta te ni lao de ma ro a ne ni ka yore ina tambo go zo de ra tema ma tru pala ti jiwo ti ko ni la ra hide ya mo ne de yapo me de ne to ko da pa na wo pa ji dong che ji dong se ka hi lo mi ba jing go ji wo lo mi ba de ba la sang la no da ne hi ne cha ya bo na tin na ju se zhe long yo lo xi da rong ne to ko yo ngo de ka.
So the first one, now the meditative concentration of seeing, recognizing all the phenomena you see as lacking bliss. So that refers to the practice of the 4 ways of placing the mind. So 4 placements of mindfulness. The first one of these 4 is to place one's mindfulness on one's body. So one focuses on one's body. One begins with focusing on a certain part of one's body while observing or counting one's breath. For example, you can start, one starts normally with the crown, the head area, and then you inhale and you exhale and you keep focusing on your crown. And someone who doesn't have any stability in calm abiding, they will lose awareness of the crown after one exhalation, inhalation already. But if you can hold the attention on the crown chakra for 50 or so breaths, inhalation and exhalation, so 50 rounds of breathing, then it's a sign that you have achieved a good state of calm abiding.
那么，这个第一个阶段是外在的现象，没有任何的一切外相是无乐的。那我们要有4种方法来安住我们的正念。第一个就是 第一个是安住在我们的身体，那其中一个方法就是数息，把注意力放在我们的头顶顶冠，然后呼吸。那么一个没有定力的人，可能在一呼一吸之间心就散掉了。那我们要慢慢的训练，如果我们能够在50次的呼吸心都不散乱的话，这算是达到初步的止。
And so then you can move this focus to different parts of your body. And so here, first of all, you have to develop a stability with the first part of the body. And then, for example, the head, the crown. So you have gained some stability with that. And then once there's some close mindfulness on this particular part of the head, for example, then you reflect on the impermanence of your body and how it is composed of impure substances and so on. And in this way, such reflection overcomes our coarse attachment and identification with the body. So you reflect, for example, now you've focused on your head, your crown, and gain stability. Then you think that it is impermanent and it's composed of blood and many other impure substances. There's nothing to be attached to this head, to this crown, and so on. And so then once you have done that, then you move on to the next body part, and then the next body part. So you have attained some stability, and then you move on to the next body part. And the point of this meditation is because normally we cherish our bodies very much. And reflecting, focusing on the body and reflecting on its impermanent and impure nature turns away this attachment, because we realize that after all there is no benefit in being so attached to the body.
那么当我们的在一个注意力放在一个地方能够稳定能够止之后，再把注意力移到下一个身体的下一个部位。那如果我们真的升起正念的话，可以感到身体的这种无常以及不净，那么这个可以对治我们对身体的这种依恋，认为它是稳定的。那么去掉这个粗的执着。那比如说我们知道这个头呢里面有血呀有脓啊等等是不净的，没有什么好执着的。那在这样稳定之后再移到身体的下一个部位，对于一般人来讲呢都是非常珍惜身体的，那注意身体的，所以这个方法来帮助我们意念身体的不净，去掉执着。
And so actually when you first start with this meditation, the direction where you start depends on your state of mind. When you start out, the mind is more agitated, there are many thoughts, then you can start with your focus by focusing on the lower parts of your body and then work yourself upwards. That will help to keep the mind inside. And if at the outset of the practice you're already a bit sleepy and unclear, then you can start at the crown and work yourself downward. And then you practice that for some weeks, and slowly you habituate to that. So the point really is habituation. Thigten Sumgön has said meditation is not just something particular to meditate upon, but basically meditation is continued habituation. That's the best meditation. So if you continue to again and again train, again and again habituate to it, that's the best meditation.
아니 단지 봐 초와팅 많이 알죠 봐. 초와라야 돼. 야무 초와 대와 야무 초와 동아 야무 초와 단지.
那么我们初步修禅定的时候，可以从我们身体一部分一部分来修。如果说由下往上的话，可以帮助我们的心往内转向内。那么可是如果说开始昏沉，出现昏沉的现象的时候，我们可以由上往下一步一步来观，一步一步来修。那一开始这种禅定的力量比较弱，我们要反复的串习，这是很重要的。吉田松公祖师对于禅修的讲法也是，他说并不是一个特定的动作，它是反复的串习，那这个是最好的这个禅定。
해당 그런 뭐 따라서 다 찾아 침보 당조 빠침보도 속값서 대송도 나오라고 인상 그 해게 찾아 침보도 조 빠침보 희내장 리가 남도야 되니 고소 하마원에 남조로와 마도게 다대 소와 동하에는 동하와 되나 대대반은 소와 동하대 그 수소는 농쇼 침보 때 도고요 말이지 그 지선 장송에는 그 농쇼 때 연구요 대인데 다 소와 동하에 소 동하들랑 미바데 근데 소와 땅형에는 대화 많이 동화 많이 땅형 소와 땅형 되거나 되는다 들어가면 소와대 하고 되는데 다 소와 되가는 내도 근데 값서 되니 남도 나서 봐지나 되니 dimba hu simbaji dimba 하고 하자면 그 남도 까로요 말이죠 남도 대 사친 조친이야 도산이 시에나야 까로 뭐로 받대리데 마산이 시에나 남산 까로요 말 काम लोग आते ही नहीं यार तानी जी लोग मारे तानी मुझे बात करना चाहिए ना को ना तो यूं आते यूं जी तेरे ना तो कोराई यूं खींच रही ना तो से जो तंबो यूं खींच रही थामा को रोक खींच रही को रोक खींच दे रोज गुड बाय लाभा रोज करें बस चला गुड बाय माला जोन देवाय ना तेरे ना तो चला से मत जे जोन रो तेरे ता करना को संग में बातें बोला ते टिम्बा ला जाते कितना बिना हाको तो नेना.
And then second is close placement of mindfulness on one's feelings. And so there's basically three kinds of feelings: feeling of happiness, feeling of suffering, and then a feeling of equanimity. So often we are not at all aware of the kind of feelings that arise in our mind. We are projected outward, distracted outward, and we just keep talking to others and chattering, and we don't really know what's really happening in our mind at all. We don't really think about the faults of distraction and so on. And then sometimes a stronger feeling arises, and then we cling on to that. And then we think of something sad and we cry, or something funny and we laugh, or we remember some unkind words and we get angry and so on. But these are all things that we need to kind of isolate the mind. We need to isolate the mind from. We need to eliminate them, but not in a way of, in a sense of rejection. So we place our mindfulness onto that feeling. So, for example, if your feeling is a feeling of happiness, then the happiness becomes your focal object. Then you take the happiness as your focal object and just rest with the happiness. And if the feeling is suffering, then the suffering becomes your focal object. And then you dwell on that. So that's what Rinpoche this morning also said: when anger arises, look at its essence. And that's similar to the practices of Mahamudra and Dzogchen. And that's why sometimes people say that Mahamudra and Dzogchen is just shamatha. But they don't really understand it much deeper. So it's, of course, more than just shamatha. So in any case, when the feeling is suffering and you just use that as a focal object, and you abide within this feeling as your focal object of meditation, then the suffering actually cannot affect you in a negative way. It only affects you negatively if you pursue it, if you follow it along. So that's suffering as a focal object. And then sometimes you feel neutral, and then you use this equanimity, where you don't have any particular feeling of happiness or sadness. And then you just stay within that feeling, while just sustaining some awareness of that feeling, you just abide. And then if a thought arises within that, just recognize it with mindfulness, but don't pursue it. And so being with it and not pursuing it, in the Mahamudra and in the Dzogchen we say don't accept it and don't reject it. So we are not actually rejecting it by not following it. We are just letting it be. So you don't have to reject it, you also don't have to accept it. The thought is just like someone who comes for a visit. So they come, and then in the end they will go again. So then you just say goodbye, and then you let them go. Of course, if you don't say that, if you don't let them go, goodbye, then they might just stay around and cause all kinds of trouble again.
Time's up, but not finish.
那么第二个阶段就是安住在自己的觉受，这种3种觉受，一个乐、苦跟平等。我们平常不会去觉察自己的内在的感受的升起，因为我们心是非常纷扰的，所以我们看不到那个分心的这种过患。我们可能会执着这个笑啊、哭啊、生气啊、出啊、恶口等等。那我们的心呢，就是当我们有乐受升起的时候，它可以变成我们禅修的所缘，安住在乐。如果我们有苦受的时候，也是可以成为所缘，安住在苦上面。就像今天早上仁波切所讲的，当嗔心升起的时候，知识它的精要，这是修止的方法。如果苦没有，如果能够这样，那么苦就不能够对你有不好的影响。它之所以会能够影响你，只是因为你去追逐它。第3个阶段就是一个平等心，要安住在平等的上面，然后提起正念，当念头升起的时候，了知那个念头的升起，而不去追逐它，不去接受它，不去迎它，也不去排拒它，任运，让它自来自去。好像有人来拜访的时候，你就来去的时候，他要走的时候跟他道别。那么有的时候如果不道别的时候，他可能一直在那里，那不走了。对不起，这一点最后一点不是很清楚，不是休息了。